Revenge films.
My name is Jonathan. I'm a full-time office employee, and I live with my wife Emily and our 5-year-old daughter Jessica. My wife always had a little bit of a strong side to her, but she was a very thoughtful and neat person, and especially before we got married, we didn't have any issues as we spent our lives together. However, when our daughter was born, I started to have suspicions about my wife. Ever since our daughter was a baby, my wife would take care of everything around us passionately, but she would never hold Jessica, nor would she be sweet to her, and I learned that my wife wasn't very motherly. Our daughter was still so small, but she would never hold her, nor look at her and smile, and seeing this, I vowed to love my daughter and give her all of my attention. When our daughter turned 5 years old, she started to come more towards me instead of her mother, who wouldn't play with her. Every day when I would come home, my daughter would be so happy to see me. And while that was so cute, on the other hand, I started to become more and more concerned about my wife, who didn't know how to interact with our daughter. Then one day, I was sent on a long-term business trip, and I would have to leave home for a while. I was worried about my daughter, so I tried many times to negotiate with my company, but in the end, I wasn't able to deny the business trip, and the day of my departure arrived. Until the very moment I left for the trip, my daughter was stuck to me and wouldn't leave my side, and she sent me off in tears. That image wouldn't leave my mind, and even during my business trip, I was thinking about my daughter every day. As soon as I finished work, I would video call my daughter, and even though we were apart, her presence was healing to me. When we first started video calling, my daughter seemed happy and normal, and I was relieved. However, as time went on, I noticed that my daughter had less and less energy, and I was worried. What's the matter? You seem a little down today, Jessica.
Yeah, I really want to see you, Daddy.
Did something bad happen?
I just want to see you soon, that's all.
I see. Me too. I want to see you soon too, Jessica. But as the days went on, my daughter only seemed more and more dark. Then one day, I suddenly got a phone call from my wife. Ever since I started the business trip, I would only sometimes speak to my wife during the video calls with my daughter. So it had been a while since she called me directly. Hello?
Oh, hello.
What's the matter?
My phone has been acting up since yesterday, and for some reason I can't make video calls anymore. So starting today, I just want you to make regular phone calls. Is that okay?
What? Does that mean I don't get to see Jessica's face?
You'll get to see her when you're done with your business trip.
My wife said that coldly, and then she quickly hung up the phone. After that, even though I couldn't see her face, I could tell that my daughter's voice had even less of a spark than before, and I only became more worried. I really wanted to go and check on my daughter as soon as possible, but my business trip was 3 hours away, even on the quickest bullet train, and it would have been too difficult to go after a workday and make it back in time for work. But then one day, as I called my daughter, something felt even more off than usual. You're not talking much today, huh? What's wrong?
I don't want to talk to you anymore, Daddy.
But why? My daughter didn't answer. All I heard was silence on the other end of the phone. However, as I listened more closely, I could hear my daughter crying. I continued to listen without hanging up the phone, and after a while, I heard my wife's voice.
Did you say what I told you to say to Dad? You better not have said anything about my friend being here.
My daughter only continued to cry, and she didn't answer my wife's question. And then I heard a voice after my wife, and much to my dismay, it was a man's voice.
Just leave the kid. Let's hurry up and get to bed.
I just called her father and made sure that they wouldn't be calling anymore, so don't worry.
Well, that's good. I can't relax if they're on the phone every single day.
Seriously, what is so cute about that kid that he has to call every single day without getting tired of it?
Your husband is so obsessive.
I know, right?
At that moment, everything fell into place. and I knew that I needed to get to my daughter as soon as I possibly could.
Jessica, where is the phone?
When I heard her voice, I panicked and hung up the phone immediately. Then I flew out of the hotel and ran straight towards the station. I managed to catch the last bullet train and started on the 3-hour journey to get back home. Inside the train, just imagining my daughter crying by herself in a dark room was more than I could bear. I knew my wife wasn't very motherly to begin with, but I never could have imagined that she would not only cheat on me, but on top of that, she would neglect her own daughter. Because of that, I was in such a state of shock that I couldn't wrap my head around reality as I desperately tried to organize my thoughts. When I finally got to the station, I hurried into a taxi and headed to my house. By the time I got there, it was late in the middle of the night, so all of the lights were already out. Without making a sound, I slowly went into the house, and I could see some light out of the cracks of the bedroom door. As I crept closer, I could hear my wife and this man making questionable noises. I threw open the bedroom door, and there was my wife with a young guy naked in each other's arms.
Honey, what are you doing here?
Is this a joke? You said he was on a long-term business trip!
So, you were cheating on me.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I'm not serious about this guy.
I don't care about any of that. Where is Jessica? Emily was apologizing profusely, but I ignored her. And when I ran to Jessica's room, she was curled up in bed crying. As soon as she saw my face, she cried,
Daddy!
and ran into my arms. Jessica, are you okay? When I looked at her, there were painful scars all over her face. What happened? Who did this to you?
Mommy and that guy!
You must have been so scared. It must have hurt so much. Everything's going to be fine now. You're going to be with Daddy forever.
Daddy! Daddy!
I desperately tried to hold back the boiling anger inside of me, and I immediately called the police. My wife and her boyfriend were fumbling to get their clothes on, but I grabbed them before they could to make sure they couldn't run away outside, and the police showed up soon after.
Give me back my clothes! I haven't done anything! I want to go home!
You don't need to call the police. There must be something wrong with you.
We would like to ask you some questions. So will you come with us back to the station?
Damn it! I was lured by this old lady and she forced me! I didn't do anything wrong!
You're the one that lured me. Please believe me, honey. I was fooled by this guy. But he's the one that hurt Jessica, too.
Why are you lying? You were the one who started hitting her in the first place!
You're going to disturb the neighbors. So just shut up and do as the police say. You can tell us all about it at the station. The two of them continued to bicker and blame one another as they were arrested and taken away. After that, my daughter and I went to the police to tell them her story. We all found out that while I was away, my wife had brought her boyfriend into the house and she was abusing my daughter. When the police questioned her, my wife confessed that she was irritated by my daughter, who was crying and begging to see me every day. On top of that, from the moment she was born, she was never able to have any affection towards her daughter, and said that she hated looking after her. As for her boyfriend, seeing Emily be physically abusive towards Jessica, he confessed, saying that he thought it would be okay for him to do the same thing. Apparently, they met on a dating app, and from the day that I left for my business trip, she had brought him into our house, and they were living together. I immediately got a divorce from my wife, and both she and the boyfriend were arrested and charged for child abuse. Until the very end, my wife begged not to get a divorce, but there was no way I could live with, much less remain married, to a wife that was going to abuse a child like that. I explained the situation to my company, and they sent somebody else on the business trip in my place, so I was able to live together with my daughter. Little by little, Jessica got her energy back, and the scars from the abuse started to heal. Before my wife was released from prison, we decided to move out of the apartment that we were living in. And 1 year after my ex-wife's arrest, I built a 2-story home to live in with my parents and my daughter. When we started living with my parents, Jessica became even more energetic, and I felt like she was finally getting back to her true self. Because we moved out of the apartment, my wife had nowhere to go when she was released, and I heard that she started working part-time at a very sketchy bar. As a result, she began dipping her hands into even worse activities, and apparently, she went back to jail again for theft and scams. As for her boyfriend, after his release, even though he was still young, he was disowned by his entire family, and rumors of his child abuse spread around the community. He lost all of his friends and is apparently living a sad, lonely life somewhere. Living with my daughter and my parents in a big house, I felt like I was finally able to find some peace. My priority is, and will always be, my daughter's happiness. And I look forward to living together as a happy family forever.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.